Mayor Baker,
Here.
Councilmember Abraham,
Here.
Councilmember Brooks,
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Here.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton,
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Here.
All present. First on the agenda this evening is the 2020 to 2021 City Council installation, as well as some accompanying resolutions. And first up is A, the appointment of a Mayor Pro Tem. And I will move the appointment of the Mayor Pro Tem. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby appoints Council Member Teresa Brooks to serve as Mayor Pro Tem for the City Council of the City of Troy for a term scheduled to expire at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, November 8th, 2021.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, that we appoint Council Member Teresa Brooks to be Mayor Pro Tem for the term expiring until the term expiring Monday, November 8th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Motion carries. I'm sorry, David. Just kidding. That was planned, everybody. It's part of our rules of procedure. But next up on the agenda is the swearing in of Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, and I'll hand it over to Ms. Dixon for that.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Brooks, if you'd raise your right hand and then just say "I do" at the end. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, the Charter of the City of Troy, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of Mayor Pro Tem in and for the City of Troy, County of Oakland, State of Michigan, according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
I do.
Yay.
Yay.
Normally we, take a picture.
That's exciting. Yay.
And also, if we were in council chambers, this is one of the times I miss being in council chambers, especially because this is where Teresa would take a seat next to me on my right. That would be fun. Hopefully we'll get to have that happen in this next year while you're Mayor Pro Tem, because I think one of the best parts is getting to sit by everybody. So,
Yeah.
congratulations. And David, again, thank you. You did a great job. And my first year as mayor, you were a fantastic Mayor Pro Tem, and I know you worked really hard for our boards and committees. So thank you again for doing
Thank you, Mayor, and good luck with calling me council member and calling Teresa Mayor Pro Tem.
If I don't mess it up tonight, I promise I'll mess it up next week.
That's okay.
That's okay.
I'm trying really hard right now. So, all right. Next on the agenda is the adoption of City Council rules of procedure. Anyone like to move that resolution? Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby adopts the rules of procedure of the City Council of the City of Troy as recorded by the city clerk in the minutes of this meeting.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve the adoption of City Council rules of procedure as read into the record. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes. Motion carries. Next up is the adoption of Code of Ethics for City Council. Someone like to move that one? Councilmember Hamilton.
Well done, Mayor. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby adopts the Code of Ethics of the City Council of the City of Troy as presented.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve the adoption of the Code of Ethics for City Council as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Just one item for me. I know we added a little bit to these a year plus ago, and then we do later in the agenda have a meeting potentially scheduled for early February to discuss further City Council ethics plans. So this may be a temporary adoption of this specific policy, but we are definitely working towards additional measures if necessary. So any other discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up on the agenda is the adoption of Code of Ethics for boards and committees. Someone like to move that one? Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolved that the Troy City Council hereby adopts the Code of Ethics for boards and committees of the City of Troy as presented.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, that we approve the adoption of Code of Ethics for boards and committees as read into the record and printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have two of them this evening. First up is the proclamation to recognize the celebration of Diwali, the Festival of Lights, November 14th, 2020, and I'll read that into the record. Whereas Diwali, the Festival of Lights, symbolizes the victory of Dharma and good over evil, and is one of the most celebrated festivals of Hindus, Sikhs, and Jains. And whereas Asian Indian immigrants are the largest ethnic group of immigrants in the metro area, with close to 5,000 living in Troy, and Troy is also the home to one of the oldest and largest Hindu temples in Michigan, the Bharatiya Temple of Metropolitan Detroit. And whereas more than 1 billion celebrants worldwide reverently observe the holy day of Diwali to mark the beginning of the Hindu New Year. And whereas the US Congress and House of Representatives have officially passed unanimous resolutions since 2007, recognizing the religious and historical significance of Diwali. And whereas Diwali is a time for dana, charitable giving, and seva, selfless service, by bringing light in the form of wisdom, knowledge, nourishment, and shelter in order to alleviate the tangible forms of suffering, such as hunger, disease, and poverty. And whereas the shared Indian holiday of Diwali signifies a special time of peace and serenity, with the hope of building bridges of understanding and tearing down barriers of intolerance. Now, therefore, be it resolved, that the Troy City Council recognizes the religious and historical significance of Diwali, the Festival of Lights, and Diwali's message of tolerance, compassion, and the victory of good over evil, which resonates with the American spirit. And be it further resolved that the City of Troy proudly expresses its deepest respect for Indian Americans and South Asian Americans throughout the world and here in the Troy community, and all those who celebrate the Festival of Diwali on November 14th, 2020. Presented this 9th day of November, 2020. Somebody hear some background noise? Anybody else hear that? I don't think it's me, so make sure you're on mute, please. Next up on the agenda is C2, a proclamation for America Recycles 2020. And I wish that we were in council chambers again so Pam Brady could come up and I could present this proclamation to her in person. In 2015, after I got elected to city council, like my first meeting, I guess, after getting sworn in, Pam offered at that meeting to give a tour to anybody who was interested to the soccer facilities and the recycling facilities in the area. And I took her up on it. And so they drove me all around and showed me everything. It was actually one of the highlights of my early time on council was learning about all of that. So anyway, Pam, if you're watching, and I'm sure you probably are, we miss you and miss seeing you. We hope to see you soon. But I will read this proclamation for America Recycles 2020 into the record. Whereas the world has changed a lot in the past century, from individually packaged food servings to disposable diapers, more garbage is now generated than ever before. The average American discards 7.5 pounds of garbage every day. Our garbage, our solid waste stream, all goes to landfills where it's compacted and buried. And whereas to focus the nation's attention on the importance of recycling, businesses, industries, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and individuals have joined together to create and celebrate America Recycles 2020 and are encouraging their employees, staff, customers, membership, and all citizens to pledge to buy more recycled content products starting today. And whereas participating in America Recycles 2020 is one way our citizens can help raise awareness about the need to reduce waste by reusing, recycling, and buying recycled products. And whereas the more we recycle, the less garbage winds up in our landfills and incineration plants. By reusing aluminum, paper, glass, plastics, and other materials, we can save production and energy costs and reduce by up to 75% the negative impacts that the extraction and processing of virgin materials has on the environment. Plastics made from precious and non-renewable petroleum and aluminum, which is mined from bauxite, are especially important to recycle. And whereas recycling helps protect our resources, our environment, and our quality of life, the entire loop, reduce, reuse, recycle, is completed when we buy products made from recycled material. And whereas from July 2019 to June 2020, the city of Troy recycled 6,105 tons of glass, paperboard, cardboard, newspaper, metal, tin, and plastic, and 10,653 tons of compost. And whereas state and community leaders need to spread the word about the excellent programs they have established, the growth of markets for recyclable materials, and the importance of buying recycled products, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Troy City Council hereby proclaims America Recycles 2020 in Troy, Michigan, and urges all Troy residents to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Be it further resolved that America Recycles 2020 is celebrated year-round to encourage people to recycle and buy products made from recycled materials. The theme for America Recycles 2020 is I Want to Be Recycled. It's presented this 9th day of November 2020. And that's the proclamation for America Recycles. Appreciate that. Again, I wish Pam was here to present in person. I don't know. I think Kurt Bovensteep is on the line. I don't know. I don't want to put him on the spot, but we've talked about it in the past, but when the City of Troy residents recycle, the more we put out in our recycle bins, the lower our cost for refuse is. Isn't that correct, Kurt?
That's absolutely correct. And it makes it even more convenient with our single stream recycling service. Everything can go in one cart. And just give a shout out to the Waste Wizard application on Sakra. That will help you decide on whether to throw it in the regular trash or to recycle it.
And one of the things I learned from Kurt specifically is, a pizza box, once you've eaten it, you can't just throw that in the recycle bin by itself because the insert in there has sauce and cheese and, wet matter on there that's not supposed to be recycled. But you just pull that out, throw that part away, and you can put the box in the recycle bin. Kurt probably doesn't remember telling me that, but for some reason that's always stuck with me, and it's a great thing, but it's good for everybody to know. So keep that stuff in mind, and thank you, Kurt. And I know you and Emily have done a lot of education over the past couple of years as we rolled out our new recycle bins, and you guys do great jobs. And I know the City of Troy is a proud recycler already, so we can celebrate America Recycles 2020 pretty well. There are no carryover items this evening. There are no public hearings, so we'll move to public comment. Based on our rules right now, this will be public comment for items that are on the agenda and are not on the agenda. We'll do it all in one. And as long as we're meeting virtual, we have two procedures for submitting public comment, either via voicemail to 248-524-3302 or via email to publiccomment@troymi.gov. So I will turn it over to City Clerk Dixon, who will read any emails and play any voicemails that she has for us this evening. City Clerk Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have 3 emails and 3 voicemails tonight. First comment is from John Gunnels. I wanted to write in support of our neighbor's fence project. With only 6 houses on Yanich Street and ours being one of them, we feel we have about 15% of the say in this business. Please let them put the fence up. Let's focus our efforts on more important things like the knucklehead who lives on Barclay and has 2 abandoned vehicles in the road, or the guy with 42 Trump signs who parks on his lawn. This isn't Clausen. Thank you for your time. Next comment is from a Troy resident. Dear Troy City Council members, I have been a resident of City of Troy for almost 9 years and have always supported initiatives that we thought would make our city improve and become attractive to others. As a young individual who likes to play cricket, I would love to have a proper field to go on to play on. We would like your support to approve a cricket field for our city. I believe that having a dedicated field will be a nice gift to the residents and will help this sport. Comment 3 is from Debanjan Deep. I am a Troy resident for over 3.5 years now, and I believe we badly need a cricket field for our community since a great number of people are cricket lovers here. I shall be glad if my request on behalf of a vast number of people is considered. And now for voicemails.
Mr. Walsh is calling in. Mr. Baker, did your city clerk inform the people of Troy, all the residents of the city of Troy who voted, that they can change their vote? I never heard that one time come out your mouth. Mr. Baker, you really do have to grow up, okay? You really do, because I'm going to run against you for mayor of Troy. Two, Mr. Baker, you're in violation of the Social Security Disability Act because you do not have a absentee or a ballot box for handicapped people. Period. People who want to walk up, the handicapped people, who wheelchairs, who want to go in person to vote, you do not provide that for them. You know that's a violation under the Disability Act. You can be sued, and so can your city clerk, because you didn't provide the ability for people who want to vote in person who are disabled. You understand that, Ms. Baker? You're in violation of that. I'm going to contact the Social Security Disability Administration about the city of Troy not being in compliance, or with any city not being in compliance. You're not in compliance. Two, voter suppression. Stop sending stuff to my house, okay? We're voting for Trump. That's all there is to it. Have a nice day. And how about putting a speed bump on Voigt Street? Do yourself a favor. Get a real job.
Good afternoon. This is Bharti Bhatt calling from Troy, Michigan, from 1094 Robertson Drive, Troy 48085. I live at this residence since 1985. I have written a letter requesting City Council to help me to get the shrubs which were installed by City Council's request by our neighborhood where they are building condominiums, and they haven't trimmed it. Ever since they installed, nothing has been done. They are growing wildly. I had sent a letter requesting getting it trimmed since it was City Council who requested to install. Please get them trimmed once a year if possible. That's the only request I have. I have talked to Trisha Brooks also. My letter should be there, and I'll appreciate if you can call me back with your decision, hopefully in favor of me. I'm not asking for anything else, but these shrubs should be trimmed so that my backyard does not look ugly. That's all I'm requesting. I'll appreciate if you can help me out with this. Thank you very much. 248.
Hello, my name is Hannah Mullins. I'm a Troy resident for about 1.5 years. I'm a wife, a mom, a veteran, a woman of color with a white husband and mixed children. Since June, my family and I have faced constant harassment for standing up to racism we've experienced in the neighborhood. Neighbors continue abusing city resources to target our family via Troy PD and the city code enforcement. Troy PD has maintained professionalism with every visit, even while responding to unjustified nuisance calls. Are there any penalties for citizens who make fallacious calls to the city or the police? There are fines if your alarm goes off on accident. There are fines if your fence is too high. Why not for those using the police and the city for harassment? What, if any, does the city do to make sure that repeated false calls, especially from racist neighbors, using and abusing public resources to target other neighbors can be prevented or deterred? What can the city do to ensure all citizens feel safe to know that the city will not or never be complicit with any racial harassment? Hello.
That is all the messages.
Thank you. That concludes those that submitted their public comment by 4 p.m. today, again via voicemail 248-524-3302 or email publiccomment@troymi.gov. A couple things I'd like to address straight off the bat, if I could. And I may need some city administration help on a couple of these things. The first email we had, Mr. Gunnels, regarding the fence project, I'm assuming that perhaps maybe that is an issue before the Zoning Board of Appeals, or maybe someone can look into that, because that's not something that's come before us specifically that I'm aware of. I see City Attorney Bloom is unmuted first. I think, did you want to go ahead, City Attorney Bloom?
Yes, it should be a Building Code Board of Appeals matter.
Okay. Will City Clerk Dixon, do you respond to that email and let him know, or maybe he approached them as well? But certainly that information for the Building Code Board of Appeals would be helpful.
We've forwarded that. I've already forwarded those messages to the appropriate departments, so they'll be able to respond to the residents directly.
Very good, thank you. We appreciate the two residents who are speaking out in support of a cricket field. Again, as we discussed at our last meeting, we'll begin to look at the feasibility of doing something like that based on the resources we have and community support. And I imagine we'll be discussing those in our budget study sessions in November this month. I don't know why I jumped ahead to February, but we'll be discussing those matters soon. We'll have ample opportunity to further engage the residents on those issues. I was a little unclear on the resident who's lived here since 1985 with the shrubs that need to be trimmed. I couldn't quite tell if Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, you got a letter on that. I don't know.
That's okay. Yes, actually, yes. I actually visited Miss Bott's house on Friday, this past Friday, to better understand the situation. My understanding of the situation is that she lives adjacent to a condominium complex, and essentially a lot of the geese come into her yard. And I think it was suggested that the shrubs would be put up to kind of protect that. But the city suggested it, and it's not her property, it's the condominium's property. But it sounds as though the condominium owner may not keep up the landscaping very well, like not mowing the lawn, but now the city kind of mows the lawn and gives him the bill. And the shrubbery is not, landscaped very well. So I think she's wondering, is there any way, to kind of encourage the property owner to kind of maintain better landscaping of their property, it seems like.
Is someone on City Manager Miller, could you speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Mayor and rest of council. There is not an ordinance that requires you to maintain landscaping. However, we will contact the landowner and ask them if they would maintain it.
Are there any remedies or anything the city can do? Obviously, if it becomes an eyesore or overgrown to a certain extent, then the city could intervene. Is that correct?
Only if it was affecting public safety and welfare, such as growing into a road or a right-of-way or blocking a clear vision zone.
Okay. Well, hopefully the owner of the property will be amenable to doing something. Good neighbor relations, I think, is a big part of our community. So, Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, did you have something you wanted to add?
All right, I was just going to say, yeah, that would be helpful, I think, at least to discuss it with the property owner. Hopefully they'd be more responsive to the city versus maybe some of the neighbors.
Very good. City Attorney Bloom, did you want to add something to that as well? I saw you unmute.
Yeah, I did. There may be individual private condominium documents, or there may be something else that also would provide some additional leverage to try and get the good neighbor to do what they need to be doing.
Thank you. To Ms. Mullins, who called in the last call, I am thankful that you called in and shared your public comment and gave us the opportunity to hear directly from you. I'm intrigued, to say the least. Certainly, I know that as you said, our Troy PD are very professional and responsive when asked to go out and make a visit such as that. I'm glad to hear that they are just as good behind the scenes as they are in front of for us. And I don't know, City Attorney Bloom, did you want to address that specific issue a little bit? I saw you unmute, and I think it's a little bit under your purview.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I'm glad for the opportunity. This has been a longstanding issue. This is over on Brooklawn, and we've had we've received several calls and concerns about the signs that are in the yard. The latest happening was it's a newly constructed birdhouse that we believe is probably in violation of the City of Troy's codes. And the neighbors have alerted the city administration to that. And we obviously have an obligation to go out, make sure that there is compliance. This birdhouse also contains profanity on the birdhouse, and it's over the fence as well. So this is something that our code enforcement will be following up on. And it has nothing to do with harassment of the individual. This is something that we have an obligation to follow up on.
And I think that was my follow-up point to that. We can't make judgment calls prior to going out on a call when we receive one as a city. The city is obligated to make those calls to each one that comes in, my understanding. And if there are complaints, the city is going to investigate them, and they're going to do it with an even hand across all residents. And so I would like to be kept in the loop. I'm sure all of council would like to hear because this particular issue was in the news a while back, and I think we do care to hear kind of an update if possible. So if you could let us know if there's anything that further comes up, certainly I'll reach out to Ms. Mullins myself as well, but appreciate any updates you can give. Mr. Walters, I appreciate you calling week after week. Your passion for public comment certainly shows, and we certainly you've brought some information over time that needs to be looked at. As far as the speed bumps, I know that our city engineer has been looking at it. We're working on a speed bump policy for the city, which no promises of what that means specifically to your issue on Boyd Street, but we're definitely looking at the policy relating to speed bumps. We don't actually have a lot of speed bumps in the city of Troy. So we're looking into that with city engineers, with police department, everything's finding what's most effective. I want to defer a little bit to City Clerk Dixon and maybe even City Attorney Bloom if necessary as it relates to your claims regarding the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Social Security Disability Administration, as you mentioned. I've never been informed that we have any potential issue with residents with disabilities being able to vote. I would be a little surprised if that was the case. So I'd like to hear directly from City Clerk Dixon to speak to that if possible, just to reassure those of us on council that to hear a little bit what that situation's like for residents who are disabled.
Thank you, Mayor. We have never received a complaint from the Social Security Disability Administration regarding access to any of our polling locations or to City Hall. And this past election, we did have disabled accessible, a voting machine set up in the hallway. We have a drop box that's disabled accessible within City Hall. So again, we serviced thousands of people over the course of the past couple months, many of whom had various disabilities, and we did not receive any complaints regarding access. And in fact, we frequently received compliments from our how we serviced everyone that came regardless of their abilities.
Okay, thank you. I know that the city went above and beyond providing access, not just for those with disabilities, but for all residents, especially with the multiple drive-through city clerks' offices where people didn't even have to leave their cars. I think that was very innovative and hopefully would address some of those issues. But obviously, if you were to receive a complaint from Social Security Disability Administration, we'd be aware and you'd let us know. And I see City Attorney Bloom on your head as well.
If we were to receive a complaint, we would investigate it and rectify the situation immediately and provide a response to City Manager Miller and let him know what the complaint was and also what we did to rectify it.
Okay. Thank you. Well, if anything comes up again, please do let us know. And one last issue, just because it was brought up about having people change their votes or giving instructions on that. It's my understanding that the only information we gave or that you gave, and I think at the meeting, we talked a little bit about how to spoil a ballot if necessary, or if you didn't receive your absentee ballot, what you could do in those cases. That's my understanding and my memory from the last meeting. City Clerk Dixon, is that accurate? Is that a good statement?
My recollection is that the discussion that we were having was regarding if an absentee voter had received a ballot and either made a mistake or had voted and changed their mind, could they get their ballot back and change it, or get a new ballot and change their vote? And the answer was yes, they could, which is well within Michigan election law to allow voters to be able to do that. So
Okay, very good. And I know that obviously we're coming off of a pretty highly charged election, and there was a lot involved. But I think that I think I feel like I need to say that the city of Troy is, I mean, to hear us talk about voter suppression is completely opposite of how City Clerk Dixon and her team and our city posture and position has been throughout this election. Quite the opposite. I think we encouraged an awful lot of voting and took extra steps to make sure that as many people could vote as wanted to. And I think that shows in our 77% voter turnout. I have to also agree with Mr. Walters, though. I wish the political mail would stop coming as well, because that overwhelmed me just as much. But that's a separate issue. But again, thank you, Mr. Walters, for your passion and public comment. That's what it's about here in the city of Troy, to hear, and we look where we need to. Sorry, I talked a lot about it. Does anyone else have there's opportunity for city council or city administration to reply to any of the public comment this evening? Is there anything else? I see Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to comment a little bit about Ms. Mullins' public comment. She did mention that there were signs in her yard, and that was maybe part of the history of dispute with her neighbors. And I did want to indicate, you know, and I hope City Attorney Bloom can confirm, is, you know, we cannot regulate signs based on content. So, you know, while we all try to be good neighbors, the First Amendment rights preclude the city or the state from regulating what can be on a sign. So, you know, whatever Ms. Mullins had in her yard is permissible by ordinance. And City Attorney Bloom, I'm hoping you can confirm that for me.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Abraham. There is a fairly recent Supreme Court case, U.S. Supreme Court case, Reed versus the town of Gilbert, that essentially says that if you have to read the sign to figure out what the regulations are, then it is content-based. And so basically it allows the First Amendment, it's a very, the First Amendment is certainly very strong after the Reed versus Gilbert case.
Thank you. It's a good clarification, Councilmember Abraham and City Attorney Bloom. Any other additional council response to public comment? Okay, seeing none. There's no postponed items this evening, so we'll move on to regular business. First on the agenda, regular business is mayoral appointments. I have two this evening. I'd like to appoint Lisa Bika Grodsky and Lisa Bika Grodsky for the term expiring October 30th, 2023 to the Global Troy Advisory Committee, and Allison Liu is the student representative to the Global Troy Advisory Committee for the term expiring July 31st, 2021.
Support.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, I appoint the Lisa Bika Grodsky and Allison Liu to the Global Troy Advisory Committee to the dates and positions as just read into the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kringa.
Yes.
Motion carries, and we do have a Global Troy Advisory Committee meeting scheduled for November 18th. So Allison will have her first chance as a student representative to participate, and Lisa has been on the board already. So looking forward to that meeting. That concludes nominations. Mayoral appointments this evening. There are no city council appointments this evening. Next up will be mayoral nominations. I have none this evening, which leads me to city council nominations, and I will turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Baker. I do have a nomination for, hold on, let me pull it up. I just had it here.
Comes out swinging, everybody. So.
I know. For a student representative for the Parks and Recreations Board. And her name is, pardon me if I mispronounce it, it's Akshitha Sahu, for the term, I believe it would be 2021 to 2022.
I think it would actually probably be until summer of 2021.
Oh,
for this.
okay, sorry, summer of 2021.
Support.
All right, moved by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks and supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we nominate, and I didn't write down her name.
Yeah, do you want me to spell it or does that matter?
Sure.
It's AKSHITHA, last name SAHU.
All right, but we nominate Akshitha Sahu as the student representative to the Parks and Recreation Board for the term expiring July 31st, 2021. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Motion carries. Do you have any other nominations this evening, Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
No, not today.
All right, that concludes city council nominations for our boards and committees. Next on the agenda is I3. There's no request for a closed session this evening. So we'll move to I4, 2021 city council meeting schedule to be introduced by City Manager Miller. Mark, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor. We took every effort to make sure that there were no conflicts with holidays and things such as breaks for Troy School District. So we proposed 2 meetings a month, and then Monday, April 19th, and Thursday, April 22nd for study meetings for the budget. And the next agenda item will be deliberations over other study meetings. And I'll answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Miller. Any questions for City Administration or Mark? All right, would somebody like to move the resolution? Council Member Hamilton.
I'll move I4 2021 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we approve I4 2021 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Motion carries. And I guess I'll just reference, I should have done it during discussion, but all these meetings are scheduled to be in person, or at least that's the way they're stated right now. Obviously, that will be addressed with COVID-19 as we progress based on emergency orders and legislation coming from Lansing. But just to clarify that, City Manager Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to let council know that Assistant City Manager Bob Bruner is working on a way to try to be able to meet live and then have public comment virtual. And we're testing it out, and we'll let you know how it comes out and what we may be able to do in the future.
Very good. I expect that'll all be based on how COVID-19 numbers are looking in the community in general. And I'm sure some members of council would prefer to continue to meet virtually like this as long as things are still looking like that's the better and safer idea. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, right? All right, next on the agenda is I5, 2021 City Council special meeting schedule, also introduced by City Manager Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to give credit to Bob Bruner, Assistant City Manager, for working on this. We've kind of outlined in the memo what we did last year and have identified some Mondays that there are no conflicts with holidays and we don't have regular meetings. So at this point, we have suggested Monday, February 1st for city Council Code of Ethics, and Monday, April 5th for personal evaluations. But I have found out that the mayor may have a conflict on April 5th. And we have researched, and I believe we found that March, was it 23rd, 24th, and 25th are available. Assistant City Manager Bob, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. The following week is Troy School District spring break. And there's a regular city council meeting on March 22nd, but no other apparent conflicts on March 23rd, 4th, or 25th.
And that's a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday option?
Yeah, correct.
And so I'm supposed to be out of town that April 5th. So I'd like to be there for the personnel evaluations. So I don't know, does anybody have a preference on those March dates, the Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday? Or any conflicts, anybody on the spot, obviously. We don't usually have our calendars with us during meetings, so that makes it a little extra tough. But we can always set something tonight, and we have the power to amend and change as necessary, obviously. Councilmember Abraham, did you have something?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you very much. I was just about to say that, without the benefit of getting into our calendars, I would be available. I can make myself available any of those days, and should checking my calendar, I have a conflict, we can address it in the future, but I don't have any problems with moving it to that Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday that you indicated in March.
City Manager Miller.
We certainly can come back and propose those dates, but what we would ask council to do is really discuss what other topics they would like for study meetings next year, so we can try to figure out where to fill that in.
That's a great point also. We've spoken at this, that include maybe some joint meetings with other boards or committees. We've talked a little bit about that. I know we've previously given you consensus to try and find a mutually agreeable time for the Global Troy Advisory Committee and City Council to have a joint meeting. I believe we've already given you consensus for that. So that would be something that I think would be a meeting that we need to look at getting on the schedule. As far as other study sessions, seems like there's been all kinds of things we've wanted to talk about over this past year, especially, but had to kind of sideline a lot of these things as we deal with COVID. Councilmember Hamilton?
You were probably going to come up with this, but definitely a discussion of the master plan. And that may require a joint session with Planning Commission. We have to do this in 2021. It's the 5-year mark. And I think it's something we talked a lot about before COVID, and it's definitely something we need to address as well.
I was talking to City Manager Miller about that earlier today, actually, and I'll let Mark give an update a little bit on that. But they've actually, the planning director and planning's been working on that. And City Manager Miller, do you want to go ahead and give a little update as to where we are and what we can expect next as council?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. So the Planning Commission has made a determination that the master plan should be updated as provided for in the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. So therefore, Brent Savedant, our Community Development Director, his newer title, has worked with Carlisle Wortman to get a scope of services to prepare that. And we expect at the next council meeting that scope of services will come to City Council. And you can also look at that scope of services and give us input on anything you would want to see or change. But that will be coming to City Council, and we'll have a schedule also.
I was going to ask, so when you say schedule, does that include what they're recommended? It might be loose to start out, but Carlisle Wortman's going to have their recommended procedure for how to work through this, I imagine. And then some of that would definitely include, meetings with us, meetings with planning. Is that correct? I guess I'm jumping a little ahead for next meeting, but.
Yes, normally, but I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know what detail it goes into. But normally Carlisle Wortman gives a schedule and including all the steps that they're recommending as part of their proposal.
and to Councilman Hamilton's point, definitely remember prior to COVID, pretty much the thing that every Troy resident could tell you about was their concern about development in the city in some way or another, and the importance of updating our master plan. And we had that great joint meeting with Planning Commission and City Council at the beginning of the year, and we had a lot of good momentum going. Hopefully we can kind of pick up where we left off with that and take care of what we need to in this upcoming year. So certainly that'll be something we need to look at as far as scheduling for 2021. Councilmember Chamberlain Creanga.
Another thing I would propose for scheduling for 2021 is a joint meeting with our DDA. We've not had a joint meeting with the Downtown Development Authority between council and the DDA, I know, for a number of years. I know that, as we'll see later on the agenda, they have a newfound $460,000 in TIF revenue that is expected to be available annually. And I know that they have some great ideas about how to use those resources, and it would be great to just have a conversation, as no doubt those are projects and things that are for the good of the city. And so just to be able to collaborate and have conversation would be a great idea.
Absolutely. And DDA did meet in the past a couple of weeks ago, and I think that board is looking at what they can do with this money and how they could address the downtown development area, or that their authority area. And obviously budgets are approved by us on council. So a joint meeting with them might be a very good idea. Certainly there's got to be some interplay so that we don't, if they're done productively and efficiently, which I know City Manager Miller, you can do, I think that they would be very beneficial for the city. Otherwise, I could see things dragging out, going back and forth a little bit, which some of that's probably okay, but we want to make sure there's good communication with that board. So I think that's a good idea too. City Manager Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just would like to add that if the DDA is going to do something new or different, the DDA's plan has to be amended, and you are the ultimate approving body of that plan.
That's right. So my general, like early on in council for me, for Edna and Ellen, you were there, of course, but it feels like we had a lot of joint meetings with the boards and committees where we met with the chamber, we met with the school board, we were meeting with everybody at various times. And, some of those I think were very productive and efficient, as I said, some maybe not so much, but I do think it sets a good tone for the city, and shows there's good ideas brought by getting our boards and our council together. Certainly COVID makes that a little bit different. I do think some of the camaraderie and the good conversations you get from an in-person meeting are lost when we do it virtually like this. So I think my hope is that as things progress, we're able to have more in-person meetings. So maybe we're not front loading the year with these meetings that are most likely going to stay virtual, but we look as, maybe as the months, as it gets warmer again and things maybe change, and we'll see how things are going with the vaccine and all the things we've been talking about in this country, that we could have more of those meetings scheduled. I know it's tough for everybody's schedule, and some of them may have to be virtual, and that's fine. But I do think it is important to have those meetings, and the relationships we build with the board and committee members and each other and the community that comes to watch and participate in public, I think are very, very valuable. So I don't know if you need, what else you need from us tonight, Mark and Bob. You've heard some of the things. I'm sure there's probably a ton more, and issues will come up that require special study sessions, especially. Was there anything else specifically that we've been talking about or that's on? I thought of one. I don't know, maybe a survey, if that's something that requires a study session, or if that's going to come as a regular agenda item. I know, Bob, you've been working on that. I don't know the answer to that question, if that's just an agenda item or if it's another study session, but did you want to speak to that?
I'm going to try to get that to you as soon as possible, actually.
Okay. So maybe we may need a study session as a result of the survey results as well. We don't know, depending on what comes of it. But Councilmember Hoderick?
I think as the I-75 modernization project winds down, I remember Mr. Hootery had a plan that for our roads that was very thorough and had been reviewed with council some years back. And not that I would be looking for that immediately, but I could see where it may and it may come in the budget study session timeframe, just, the update of what we set aside that we didn't do while that project went on, and, kind of where we stand with our roads in the city, what the status is, what the plan is. Again, I'm not looking for that. To me, I know that that's a lot of work, but that I could see where we would want to have a study, an understanding as a body of what that looks like long-term, how they assess, and frankly, the wear and tear of our roads as I-75 traffic dumped onto them, north and south, what we're seeing. And I don't know exactly when that will have been ascertained, but I would really welcome an understanding of that, because our residents really value the fact that we work hard to try to maintain our roads in a timely way and really support the work. So I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle. And the master plan continues to be something I hear about. Roads and the master plan are something that seems to be on everybody's mind.
City Manager Miller. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Mayor. It really is not that much work to report on it because we have a 6-year capital plan and all the projects are laid out. So we can definitely get that information to you.
It's great. Roads affect every one of our residents as soon as they leave their house. So I think that affects all of us in this city like nothing else. Maybe water, I guess, is the second thing. The couple things popped into my mind as Councilmember Hoderick was talking about I-75, and then when City Manager Miller just responded. The first is, and maybe this isn't as high on the priority list, but we've talked about gateway signage and we're working on that previously and put a hold on that. That probably has some interplay potentially with the DDA, as we had planned on putting some of that gateway signage in their dedicated area, but obviously gateway signage goes around the whole city. We talked about looking at where things kind of flush out with the I-75 landscaping plan. And I know the DDA is talking a lot about that as well, because that should play a role. So we don't have something that clashes, or we want something that complements well and obviously makes Troy stand out. So I don't know if that's worthy of a study session in and of itself. Sometimes with study sessions, you get a lot of opinions that don't give you a lot of direction. Sometimes you get some good direction. So maybe that's a little bit of a crapshoot. But the other thing that came to my mind, and now it's just escaped my mind, actually. It'll come back. I should have written that. I write a lot of stuff down. I didn't write the second one down, but it'll come back to me. It's a good one. So anything else as far as other joint meetings or study session ideas that we know that have been burning a hole in our pockets at this point? All right, so that gets us back to the I-5 resolution. For now, I think that maybe I'll move I-5 2021 City Council special meeting schedule. Resolve that Troy City Council shall hold a special meeting on the following dates at 6 p.m. Monday, February 1st, 2021 for City Council Code of Ethics. And let's say Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021 for personnel evaluations.
Support.
All right, moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga, that we approve I-5 as just read into the record with those dates. Any further discussion? All right, recognizing if we need to, hopefully we can make those dates, but we're able to move any of these. If for some reason Councilmember Abraham gets home and realizes she has a meeting with the CEO of GM scheduled for Tuesday, March 23rd, we could figure that out. But all right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton, Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Motion carries. And of course, I just remembered what that other special study session subject was that I was thinking of as we were talking about that. And I don't know if it's something I would imagine we need to address it, City Manager Miller, but we had last year 2019, we received our facilities condition report and assessment. And we were looking at the capital needs of our aging public buildings, over 50 of them. And I'm wondering if at some point in this next year, city administration will be ready to potentially make a presentation to us or discuss options for funding of what we need to do if several of those buildings need capital work at the same time. So that could be a subject that could and maybe should be addressed in this upcoming year. Our library will be 50 years old next year, so I know we just passed the millage, but we've got other things to talk about with that as well. City Manager Miller.
Yes, part of, I believe, the second November budget study session, there will be some opportunity for council to discuss funding capital projects or operating costs through a millage or bond efforts, so that you have some discussion, and that will get the ball rolling for us to investigate what you may or may not want. I guess the point I'm trying to say is that in those budget sessions, we're going to start the discussions about other funding mechanisms besides relying fully on the real estate tax revenue, which is our primary revenue source.
Very good. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of direction coming out of that. Certainly as it relates to the Aquatic Center as well, that might be something we'll have to further discuss as we are well. So thank you for that. Appreciate looking forward to those study sessions, the budget planning sessions these next few weeks. I think they're going to be good. So next on the agenda is I-6, the Plant Moran City Council investigation report. And that'll be presented by City Attorney Lori Grigg-Bloom.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of council. The Plant and Moran has committed to finalizing the investigative report, which is again part of the follow-up to the forensic audit report. They have committed to finalizing it so that it can be included in City Council's November 23rd City Council agenda packet. And right now, it is covered by the attorney-client privilege. There were a number of reasons for that. One of them is that we wanted to encourage candid and frank discussions. And another is that we wanted to make sure that we were protecting any potential criminal investigation. So those concerns are not anything that we have any worries about. Council had earlier talked about releasing this at the earliest opportunity. And so there is a proposed resolution that would waive the attorney-client privilege and allow for the Plant Moran investigative report to be included in the City Council agenda packet for November 23rd.
Thank you, City Attorney Bloom. Appreciate the memo that accompanied this item as well. I think that laid things out very well. Are there any questions for City Attorney Bloom or City Management at this point? Okay, well, I'd like to move I-6 Plant Moran City Council investigation report. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby waives the attorney-client work product privilege to allow a public release of the Plant and Moran investigative report, authorized by the professional services agreement approved in Resolution 2019-12-153. Be it further resolved that Troy City Council further directs this report to be included as part of the November 23rd, 2020 City Council agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve I-6 Plant Moran City Council investigation report as printed and read into the record. Any discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
I just want to thank you, Mayor. Back in 2019, you were the one who kind of spearheaded this effort, and I think it's really important to clear the air and help us move on and find the right path forward, especially with our ethics discussions coming up. And just wanted to thank you for your leadership on this. And I'll gladly support it.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. I appreciate your support now. I appreciated your support then, especially, and everyone. This was actually a joint referral by Councilmember Hoderick and I, as I recall, but I do appreciate the support we had at that time. And I think you're absolutely right about this being the necessary and right thing to do. when we brought that referral, it was always our intent to waive the privilege and have it released to the public. And obviously, we don't take waiving the attorney-client privilege lightly, and that's something that should be done in limited circumstances as it relates to the city and this body. But this was specifically done with that in mind, and recognize what City Attorney Bloom had just mentioned is the reasons where it was done and the privilege to begin with. But I'm very comfortable waiving the privilege at this point based on circumstances. Councilmember Abraham, I saw it looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I do appreciate that Plant Moran. I know they've been waylaid also by the COVID situation. And as much as we would have liked to have seen this earlier, you know, I know I'm so happy to see it now because this isn't just an election year issue. This is something that I think a majority of council felt very strongly about. It wasn't just, you know, something to get elected. This is something each of us at our fundamental being feels very strongly about, in getting this right and making sure that any lapses are addressed and that we put together a very proactive plan to make sure that this never happens again and make this a teachable moment for the region, for the state, for the country. We had some pretty bad things happen in our city over the past couple, 3 years regarding ethics lapses. We can turn this around and we can make Troy a model of what needs to happen to have a truly ethical government. So I'm looking forward to this being on the agenda on the 23rd. I'm looking forward to the findings being released to the public without varnish, just the unblemished assessment from a third party so that we can move forward and then take that report, use the recommendations, and hopefully put a really solid code of ethics together that has teeth in it, that prevents situations like the ones we had a few years ago from ever happening again.
That's an excellent synopsis of exactly why we brought this a year ago and why we've gone through this. And Councilmember Abraham, I appreciate your great way of saying it. I think that's exactly right. And it's very important that, and frankly, I plan to say a little bit more next week, our next meeting when the report is out, because I want to talk about it a little bit. But it is important that we use this as a tool to move forward in this city, and that's the intent of it. Obviously, there's some looking back as part of that, but to be able to go forward with it and to learn as a body, as a city, and all the, and to make good ethics reform where necessary and move forward. I think this would be the right thing for that. And I guess I did have a question now that I thought of it as Edna was talking, and I was just talking, will this be, when it says released in the agenda packet, City Manager Miller, will it be released as a report in the agenda packet, or is there potentially an action item related to this or presentation as far as what city management recommends to move forward based on the contents of that report?
Thank you, Mayor. I know that question was directed to me. To this point, this has been a city attorney's project per se. I mean, I would suspect it would just be a report, but I'd really like Ms. Bloom to comment on that.
Mayor, at this point in time, since it's not yet finalized, that it probably should be a report, and then council can give direction after that. So it might not just be one meeting where you're addressing it. It might be meeting, afterwards. I think city management, however, does want to provide an update on the other steps that have been taken on the city's corrective action plan, and we're hoping to do that as a report also.
Perfect. Thank you. City Manager.
Mayor, just this report coming back up is actually given our attention back to the points from the original Plant Moran report. So we're refocusing and trying to work on those, like the code of ethics and things of that nature.
Very good. And it was promising to see a meeting scheduled for February 1st to discuss City Council Code of Ethics already set. We just set that. So I imagine this will play a role in that as well. Any other discussion on I6? Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to echo your comments about how we respect the attorney-client and other privileges, especially those of us who have connection to the law. It's definitely something we don't want to take lightly. However, as it's been said, sunshine is best disinfectant. And given the issues that we've been through, as highlighted by Councilmember Abraham, I think that the best policy here is to waive the privilege.
Thank you. Good. Sunshine. I haven't heard that one in a while, but that's absolutely right. So good one back. Councilmember Hoderick.
You know, the objective is to learn and grow from the era we went through. It's not something that I would ever want to go through again. But, you know, to share what we've learned, to understand what we went through, to have all the pieces, the council piece of it was the last piece, and that we can really go forward together with one another as a council, with staff, with the community. And this is the right thing to do. And I feel really good that we did it. There were a lot of personal learnings I had along the way, and staff participated in these interviews and helped share where the issues were in the learnings. This gave council an opportunity to do the same. And that's the goal, to learn, to capture it, learn. When fingers are pointed at a council saying, you guys set a tone at the top, we want to understand what that was, what that felt like, how we did that, and not do it again. Hopefully we'll leave a better legacy as a result of the learnings we've had. So thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Very true. Councilmember Abraham.
Just one last comment. I think I just want to piggyback off of what Councilwoman Hoderick said. The intention of this is not to be punitive. I know this was a very controversial topic with the last council, and I don't think that's our intention. It is very much a forward-looking, how can we do better? I don't want to use this as a stick to beat up individuals. That's not the point of this. The intent is for all of us to do better, for future councils to do better. And I want to make sure that's very clear to our residents. You know, this is not intended to be an opportunity to kick people because they may have done something questionable. The intent is truly, how can we strengthen this council? How can we strengthen our behaviors so it doesn't happen again? And I just want to make sure residents understand this is not a punitive action that we're taking. It is intended to make our community better.
All of our actions are for the best of the community, but yeah, yeah, I know what you meant. Absolutely. Any other comments or discussion on I6? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes. Motion carries. Look forward to having that released in the next council agenda packet. I7 is election hazard pay program, and that'll be introduced by City Manager Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. It became apparent through the summer that the clerk's office, in administering the upcoming election that occurred last week, that they would have to work in person. And then as we came closer and closer to the election, the clerk's office became busier and busier and busier. And then subsequently, the city passed a first responders hazard pay plan, which would be reimbursable. City council authorized that. Then city council authorized hazard pay for public works employees, inspectors that work in the field, and surveyors that work in the field. And that actually was funded out of the general fund. City Clerk Dixon came to me and said that her election workers were just as, I'll say, at risk in dealing with people as all of those other people. And I can tell you, especially the last 2 weeks before the election, it was very, very busy. The staff in City Hall was having to literally run from outside of the parking lot, get whatever documents back in the clerk's office, run upstairs, run back down. And the clerk came to me and said it just wasn't working. We were going to have to let people into the building so that the staff isn't running back and forth. And I can tell you from my own personal opinion, and I think I did send a picture of this on the Friday before Elections Day. The building was very busy. There was a lot of people here. And I had then asked the clerk to research this, and come to find out that they do have the possibility for reimbursement. So what we are proposing is that full and year-round part-time staff in the city clerk's office receive $1,000. Election aides, which are temporary part-time employees, will receive $200. And election inspectors, who are precinct workers who work on election day, receive $50. This totals $28,000. And it is reimbursable through both the Oakland County CARES Act grant and the Center for Tech and Civic Life grant. So this is all reimbursable. And I recommend that we adopt this and provide hazard pay for election workers. And Elaine Dixon and myself are here if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Before we move a resolution and have discussion, are there any questions for City Manager Miller or City Clerk Dixon related to this program? Councilmember Hamilton, did you want to move this resolution? It seems like
Sure.
something.
I was going to do that. I'm going to read it in the record too, because I'm so proud of Clerk Dixon and her team and everything they did for us and with this pandemic raging, especially in the last few weeks, and just all the amazing options that you put forth on the table to make sure everyone could execute their right to vote. I think what we had over 70% turnout. I forget the exact, maybe 80%, but it was one of the highest ever, and it was just incredible. So I'll move I-7 election hazard pay program. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby approves an election hazard pay program reimbursable through Oakland County CARES Act grant and Center for Tech and Civic Life grant for city clerk's office employees, election aides, and election inspectors, recognizing their continued in-person service, including drive-up service, extended hours, and in-person work on election day during this unprecedented election cycle.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Lynn Chamberlain Kranga, that we approve I-7 election hazard pay program as read into the record. Now it's discussion. And Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes, I actually worked in a precinct. I would like guidance on whether it would be a conflict of interest for me to vote on this.
City Attorney Bloom.
Yes, this is something that actually is, although you are benefiting individually, potentially, it's a nominal amount that you would be receiving, and really it's more about the rest of the other workers who are in that position. So I think you can vote with a clear conscience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Erickson Galt, for asking a good question that sounds like ethics, something we've been talking about. So appreciate that. Other discussion from council? Councilmember Hoderick.
This is such a no-brainer. I mean, it was just heroic work on the part of everyone involved. Just the hours and the exposure to people as they were exercising their right and responsibility to vote. And It's, like I said, it's a no-brainer.
Got the no-brainer vote from Councilmember Hoderick coming up, it sounds like. Other discussion from council? Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
That's fine. Yes, no, I agree. Thank you so much, City Clerk Aileen Dixon, and all of the poll workers and everyone that just worked so hard. I was so impressed by, the job that you guys all did. I was wondering just at the end, the breakdown, what percent voted in person versus what percent voted by mail in the end for residents of Troy?
City Clerk Dixon?
The off the top of my head, which I wasn't prepared for this answer, but off the top of my head, I believe it was, that's okay. I believe it was over 50% voted absentee, and we had 76% turnout. So over 50% voted absentee, and the remaining 20-something% voted in person.
I was just wondering.
That's a good question, Mayor Pro Tem Brooks. And it seems like there were more than 26% of the registered voters voting on election day because the polls were pretty busy. But talk about that in a second. Is there any other discussion from council members on this item? Not seeing any hands. All right. Well, I'll just add, City Clerk Dixon, I've been trying to sing your praises and your team's praises for the past 6-7 weeks, or 8 weeks, I guess, going back to before August, so months at this point. But I've firsthand witnessed how hard you all have worked and the good work you've done for our city and for the region and the state, I think, and being a great model and example for how a city can do elections right. A combination of your innovative ideas for the drive-through balloting clerk's office, from that to the graphics that went out on social media for attention getters. I know Stephanie Fleischer in the city manager's office has played a large role in that as well. But just the fact that your team, we knew going in to this election day how much pressure would be on you based on the candidates and what they were saying, based on the pandemic. And yet obviously I don't see you on a day-to-day basis, but I don't think you were out there complaining about having to work so hard to do this. I think you love what you do as a city clerk and you love the idea of getting to people, to having them vote. And I really I do want to commend you personally, and I know that the whole city council and the whole city appreciates all that you do. I posted something that you were mentioned in an article in the Oakland Press, and it's great comments from people commenting about how great you are and thanking you. And they loved the updates that you were providing me as far as absentee ballots that I was able to pass on to the community. I think that kind of transparency, the kind of work that you did, and your attention to detail especially goes to show how safe and secure our elections are here in Troy and how seriously you take this role and how important that is for democracy and for all of us. So I want to personally thank you and your team, because I know it was very much a team effort and you wouldn't want to leave them out. Giving you all some hazard pay and all of those that volunteered to work on election day or in the AV counting pre-processing on the Monday before. This is, like Councilmember Hoderick said, a no-brainer. It's the least we can do. And just want to say thank you. And I like the August election day, Bethany and I went around and gave out donuts in a safe COVID fashion to the people who were volunteering at the polls for candidates, both sides of the political persuasion. Also had the opportunity to pop my head in and see some of the workers who were working inside the polling precincts themselves, give them some donuts. And they were all, they were so professional, so friendly, so properly dressed with their personal protective equipment and taking everything so seriously with social distance and everything. You really had trained them well to do a good job for our community. And everything I've heard from the community is that it was really, really handled well, and they felt that they were very comforted by the measures you had taken to allow them the opportunity either to vote in mail beforehand or in person on election day. So I-7 is absolutely something I will support, and I thank city administration for presenting it to us and giving us the opportunity to do this. And it's even better that it's a grant funding that's going to look at get reimbursed for. So thank you, Aileen, and I'll ask for the vote from you, Ms. Dixon.
Thank you. And just before I call the vote, thanks everyone for your kind words and for supporting this. It really means a lot to me and to my entire staff and to all the people that worked the election. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Motion carries enthusiastically. So next on the agenda is the consent agenda. We did have 2 late submittals as far as the city council minutes for J02A and J02B. So we'll make sure those are included. Anybody like to call anything from the consent agenda this evening? Bless you, City Manager Miller. All right. Anyone like to move the consent agenda? Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. I will move all items on the consent agenda as printed, including the late submittals.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda report, including the late submittals as previously referenced. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries. All items on the consent agenda have been approved this evening. Next on the agenda is memorandums and future council agenda items. There are none this evening. We've handled public comment previously. There are no council referrals this evening, so we'll move on to the reports. Does anybody have any comments on the reports this evening? Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to bring attention to report 002A, which is regarding our bond refunding resolution for the DDA. I am incredibly happy with how this went about. We got a new S&P bond rating that came up AAA, which of course is fantastic and something we always talk about. And this is a clear example of what having a AAA bond rating can do for you. The pandemic's been a tragedy, but it has caused interest rates to plummet, and our city was able to take advantage of that. And as a result, our DDA will free up $460,000 a year for the next 13 years, which is a tremendous windfall. And we do this without costing us anything. It's simply refinancing the bonds, paying off the old bonds with new bonds with substantially lower interest rate, something like over 5% to 1.85%. So I'm so happy at city staff that they were able to do this, and so happy for our many years of fiscal responsibility that we were able to bring this benefit and this money. And we'll discuss in upcoming budget sessions what we're going to do with this, coordinating with the DDA. But this is an incredible thing to be able to basically get free money, to be able to, without costing us anything, to, rather than paying interest, we can do it to make our city better. So I'm incredibly happy with this, and thanks for this report. And it ended up being even $30,000 more per year because they got an even better interest rate than they originally predicted when we put this into action a few council meetings ago.
Absolutely. Great, great synopsis, and thank you for referencing that specifically. Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga, I saw it looked like you were trying to speak as well.
Exactly. So Councilmember Hamilton beat me to it on a report at 002A on the DDA debt refunding. One thing I do want to call out with that is there is a report affixed to the memo from city, which goes into kind of the categories, and there are new categories in determining the AAA bond rating. And it kind of gives a bit of a description in terms of how we qualify for that AAA bond rating. So if anyone wonders what goes into a AAA bond rating, what does it take to get that? If you read that report affixed to the memo, you can see kind of some of the information. And I found that very, very informative. And it's all around just great news. The second report I just wanted to also call attention to was 002B, the Troy Ride 1-year anniversary. And it was just really great to learn about Troy Ride on this occasion of it transitioning from Medigo, a nonprofit, to now being run by our own Department of Public Works. And it's just very impressive in terms of all that they've done. And the big takeaway for me is that there has been just all the more enhanced customer or patron satisfaction. And one thing just to really stress is what a great service this is in our community to provide to seniors and those with disabilities to have these free shuttle rides that they're able to set up appointments for, especially during COVID. And it did remind me, as I read the report, that we approved also hazard pay for our DPW staff, and this includes the drivers of these buses. So I thank them for their service and being on the front lines during this difficult time. And as they've had to prioritize how to support our seniors and those with disabilities and providing transport for them during this time of COVID. And I also saw it used at the polls for seniors. I saw seniors taking advantage of that as a way to also make sure they could get to their polling station. So a great service to our community. Thank you to the DPW and everyone for that.
Great, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crango. That Troy ride is near and dear to my heart for a number of reasons. One of which was we were fortunate to use funds that were going to an underutilized Big Beaver shuttle and focus it to residents who really could use the service. And as we've seen by the numbers and seen by the good work that the DPW has done, it's a successful operation at this point. And we're very thankful to have the drivers who are out there. Again, they're like frontline responders, coming in contact with our residents who are in desperate need of these transportation rides. And we appreciate you all so much. And thanks for this good report. I can't believe it's been a 1-year anniversary already. It seems like we were just talking about this. Time goes very, very fast. But Kurt, I know you're still listening. Thank you for what your role in that. And I know that a big part of that is working with the community and those who need the rides. And I know that you've got good help working that as well. And that interface between the residents and our staff is also very important, especially as it relates to Troy Ride. So thank you. Any other comments on the reports this evening? Okay. Next on the agenda is council comments. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mara. It feels kind of weird because for once I'm not going to be able to talk about all the election options like I've done for the past 3 months, but we already covered that.
Probably in a year. We've got, so you can start now.
Oh yeah, but I just wanted to mention that the library millage passed by an overwhelming margin, nearly 2-1. I'm grateful to Troy residents for entrusting this council with that. Again, that is only the 1.1 mils is the maximum we can enact. We could do less if that's what we determine we need to do. But this will, and again, this won't be this year's tax bill. This will be next summer's tax bill when it first will be enacted and when we'll first collect the money and be able to do all the things that we need to do, such as open the library for 7 days and do all the deferred maintenance we need to do. And I'm grateful for this. It's been a long time coming. This is a 10-year millage. This is something that's going to be here for a long time. Something my daughter is going to be able to use growing up, just like I did when I grew up here. And I'm very grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the overwhelming support. I know polling in the election was very bad, but the polling we got for this was actually spot on. It said about 2/3, 70% would support it. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm grateful for that and the discussions. And thank you to Mark and Bob Bruner and the entire city staff for the many sessions we had regarding the library. This is such a great thing for our community. It might be the thing I'm most proud of since I've joined council, because I know the value it brought me growing up here, and now everyone else in the community can experience it too.
It's great sentiment, Councilmember Hamilton. And as I recall, I think the newer part of the library is a year younger than you, right? Isn't that what we discovered? So, something along those lines. But since you brought it up right now, I absolutely, the citizens of our community have overwhelmingly showed their support for full and adequate funding for the Troy Public Library, and which will include getting our 7th day of service in the future, which is something I've long championed, and finally we found a way to make it work, and we needed the residents to weigh in and to make it work. So I appreciate the community for getting out. I also very much appreciate city management and Assistant City Attorney, not Alan Motley, Assistant City Manager Bob Bruner for and I'll say painstakingly at times, making sure he's responding to community residents' requests, attending and providing the forums, whether they were early on focus groups as it related to the millage amount, and then later with the town halls that were virtual, where he and Director Kathy Russ gave a presentation that answered questions as they came in. I know that Bob has been very much focused on the library this year, and we're very appreciative of all the work you did that. Do I think that what you all managed to put together as far as the information for the community, the dedicated page on the website as it related to the library millage, the calculator as to how it would affect each resident, the consistent reports you gave us each council meeting showing where we were in the community engagement plan, what steps have been taken, what needed to still be taken. I think that's the kind of work that gives us on council comfort level that we're doing good by the community, which then makes the community have good service and good effective government. So thank you, Bob, for your, I know, specific role in doing that. And of course, Mark, for overseeing all of that as city manager. I know that you, it's been something that's been talked about for a long time, and we do have a 10-year millage now, and we'll address how that gets done. City Manager Miller, I see that you did raise your hand. Did you want to add to that? I have something to say.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that the strong support for the millage is a great platform for us to start recruiting for the new library director, which we're going to start working on immediately.
We haven't talked about that at a council meeting yet, but Director Kathy Russ is moving on to another great opportunity. So we will be appointing a new library director. And I'm sure that whoever that new library director is will be comforted by the fact that we've got a solid 10-year millage in place that will make his or her job easier and can focus on the needs of the residents and the community with the library. So that's great news as well. Councilmember Hoderick.
Just related to this, and I'm looking at Councilwoman Abraham here. We go way back looking to protect the library, but to do so in a fiscally responsible way. And related to the whole AAA bond rating discussion we had a few minutes ago, this library millage is absolutely critical for the city on multiple levels, including protecting the AAA bond rating. And it's a very responsible millage rate that the residents voted in. And as a community, we can be proud of our fiscal management. It's about so many things. It's multiple levels. A library that's properly funded in a long-range way that allows for the proper planning going forward. And it's been a long time coming. I think like 12 years ago was when I was first really paying attention. And I feel like I can take a deep breath and say, this is a responsible way of shepherding a gem of our community and in a fiscally responsible way. So it's clear to me that the work, the communication work that went on, I just want to echo the thanks to Assistant City Manager Bruner and Library Director Kathy Russ and all the folks that supported them with the communication efforts. It made my role trying to help residents understand why we even had this on the ballot a bazillion times easier than it has been in previous years. And we've been building an understanding over time, and you really helped us be transparent about why we were asking for this. And it's a wonderful home run for our community to have this. So thank you to all of you on staff who worked so hard to engage, understand, hear questions from the residents, and help folks understand before they voted.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoderick. Absolutely. And I was glad you brought up the AAA bond rating, because I know you hadn't mentioned it in our previous conversation just a minute ago, but this is the kind of thing that weighs into determining those bond rating numbers and the importance of having this dedicated funding and what that does to our city. So glad you brought it up again. Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga, I think I saw your hand go up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was just say here to everything that Councilmember Hoderick just shared. I'm so proud to be able to raise my son and my family in a community that overwhelmingly supports its library. So it's fabulous news. And just love the way that it came out of so much rich community engagement. For comments, I just have two separate share. Just overwhelmingly, and also just reiterate all my support. Can you hear me?
We can. It cut out for just a minute, but it seems like you're back normally now. So
It's showing that my audio is cutting out. I'll just continue speaking. Let me know if you can't hear me. Clerk Dixon, I'm so proud to support hazard pay for you, your staff, for poll workers, for the AV counting board members, and just thank you for all that you've done. I also want to thank the Troy Police Department, the DPW, Department of Public Works for all that they do, and of course our entire our city administration for just coming around and supporting Election Day, supporting the democratic process. It just made me so proud to see everyone out there on Election Day just supporting each other. So thank you for that. The last thing that I just want to mention is that this week, Wednesday, is Veterans Day. And I just want to take a moment to really thank our veterans and military personnel who really serve our country and protect the freedom that means so much to us. I'm grateful to have Troy neighbors, and I want to mention one of them, Russell Miller, who has served in the U.S. Air Force in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he's had and flown over 300 missions in the Air Force. He remains active in the National Guard today and is a leader in Troy's VFW. And I mentioned Russell and his wife, Christina, his daughter, Morgan, who support him, because it's really important for us in Troy to remember that we do have military families in our city, with Selfridge base just down the road. And so I do want to thank Russell, Christina, Morgan, and all of our veterans and servicemen and women who really who do so much to really protect our freedoms. And so thank you for your service on the occasion of Veterans Day this week.
wonderful that thank you for bringing up Veterans Day. Traditionally, as you know, we have a Veterans Day ceremony in Veterans Plaza. Or actually, last year it was moved indoors because we were getting a bunch of snow, but typically it's out in the plaza along with our Memorial Day service. Both of those have been canceled this year because of the pandemic, but we look forward to obviously recognizing our veterans in the city of Troy in our own ways this Veterans Day, and we hope and pray that we'll be able to get back out there next year to do our ceremonies, because I know they are very well received in the community, and I think it's a beautiful testament to our veterans to have them come in person, and we have the band playing, and to have the different service songs played and everyone stand. It's just a really honor and beautiful event. And you know, we talk about veterans in our city. There are a ton. In fact, Hannah Mullins, who was on the call earlier for public comment, she served in the armed services. So, you know, I mean, that's just one example right there. That's somebody who called in for public comment this evening. So we know that you're out there, and we know that you often need help and you need support and you need recognition. So we honor you and appreciate you so much. So thank you, Rebecca, for bringing that up. It's hard to believe it's Veterans Day already coming up. But the other thing, I just thought of something library related that I didn't say, but when Ellen was talking, it came to my mind. You know, the communication with the residents and the community engagement needs to continue on a number of things. Obviously the financial planning aspect of it, as we have our budget study sessions and planning this month, I'm sure the library will be addressed somewhat on there, because this new tax rate doesn't go into effect until next year's fiscal budget. So I'm assuming that will come up. But as you recall from our survey and our focus groups, the residents of Troy really want to know what they're going to get for their money, for their library. And we talked a lot about it during the past several weeks and online information. But I think it's very important that we, as a city and as a council, continue to provide that information to the residents in a meaningful manner so they know exactly what they're getting. When we do any capital projects or deferred maintenance, I think it's important that we put that out there. We maybe keep a dedicated, library millage page, or what your funding's doing for you, basically, or something. These are just ideas I'm having now, but something like that, so people can always have that way to go. Obviously, we're not going to be doing necessarily continued town halls anytime in the future, or there won't be mailings going out, but I think it is very important that we keep up a good communications plan as it relates to the library, recognizing that there were still, several thousand people in our community who didn't vote to support this millage for various reasons, and we still need to continue to educate and discuss and hear all sides of the issue so we can work together as a community. Were there any other additional council comments this evening? Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say how proud I was of our city's residents. Tuesday, Election Day, was a big day for our city, for our state, for our nation. And I'm so proud that our city hit such a high voter turnout rate. 77% is huge. I'd love to see it higher than that. But that's a substantial turnout. It means people were paying attention. They were engaged, and our city staff was ready for that. The other reason I'd like to thank our residents, and part of why I'm so proud of them, is that, as we all know, there's a lot of heightened tension in the country, and there was a lot of concerns about safety at polling locations and what might happen. And while our Troy Police Department always monitors polling locations on any election day, I was so pleased that we had no incidents. There was no reason for concern. Everyone felt safe. Everyone was able to exercise their right to do their civic duty. And there were never any problems reported at any of the polling locations. And so I am so grateful to our residents for keeping an even keel in very troubled times for our country. The other reason that I'm so proud of our residents is because they did pass the library millage. And clearly on council, we've been studying this issue for a long while. We had a lot of deliberations about putting this on the ballot. And the conversations that we have now are so much different from the conversations we had in 2010. And you heard Councilwoman Hoderick refer to that in some of her council comments. 10 years ago, we couldn't have had a true civic conversation, a civil conversation about the library and the funding and what it meant to our city and how it actually impacted the financial outlook for the city. And it took 10 years in the making to get to that point. And I really am very appreciative of our residents for coming along that journey with us over the past 10 years. We have put our city in a very good financial position, and we've put our city assets, one of our most beloved city assets, the library, in a very good position for 10 years. And so I'm very grateful and very thankful to our residents for that. I'm also very grateful for our residents for volunteering. I know it was paid, but they volunteered their time to support work at the precincts and at the AV counting board. It was an unprecedented number of people that took time to help make sure that all of our votes counted. And the work there is meticulous, it's painstaking. And that's done to ensure that there's traceability behind every ballot. There is no ballot that is unaccounted for. And that doesn't happen. It's not happenstance. It's because of deliberate actions and fantastic training that our city clerk is responsible for. If there's any doubt about what it takes to run a very clean and very fair election, I would encourage residents to volunteer their time to be part of the AV counting board or to work at a precinct, and you will understand just all the effort, all the checks and balances that are put in place to make sure that we have the gold standard of elections here in Troy. Again, that doesn't happen by accident. It's because of the leadership that our city clerk, Aileen Dixon, has shown, and her innovative approach, the willingness of all of her staff to come on board with these new ideas and making them so successful, and then driving that down to the precinct workers, to the AV counting board, people who may have never volunteered before for an election, and making sure that it's clear, straightforward, and that we have a very high quality election. So again, Tuesday was a really big day. I'm so proud of how our residents and how our staff were prepared for election day. And again, just my thanks and gratitude towards everyone.
Nicely put in, especially the AV county board. I was just telling somebody today, not ashamed to admit this, but 5 years ago when I got on council, I knew very little about the process for counting absentee ballots in our city. And I was a little skeptical at the process in general until I started talking to City Clerk Dixon, and she educated me and she informed me and she showed, she didn't show me the process because I haven't seen one in person, but she explained. And I think that education is so important for people to have an understanding of how the process works. And obviously, over 50% of registered voters in the city of Troy voted by absentee ballot this election, so they felt comfortable and safe to do it. But again, that education I think is so valuable, and I love your idea, and that to have, if you're interested and curious, you volunteer. It's a great way to learn. It's also a great way to just to recognize the value and importance of safe and secure elections and how we do things, especially here in America, but in the city of Troy, we really do a fantastic job of that. So thank you for bringing that up, Edna, for sure. Any other council comments this evening? All right, well, there's no closed session this evening. So I will say, stay safe out there. Appreciate our frontline workers, first responders, healthcare heroes. Keep up the good work, especially as things change a little bit. And with that, we are adjourned. Bye, everybody.